Hey, what is going on guys? RvzStealth here, and in today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys my opinion on the best AD carries for patch 5.24. If there aren't any changes to AD carry for patch 5.25, then what I'll do is I'll just change the title of the video to patch 5.25 if I don't think there are any significant changes for the list for patch 5.25. So with that being said, let's get into the video. First up on my list is going to be Quinn. I think that with the recent changes Quinn got to her Q, she's a much stronger AD carry now. She can trade in the laning phase really nicely, and it's just really hard for the enemies to do anything against Quinn if she does end up landing her Q, because their vision is going to be reduced. They won't be able to see where they're going, and then therefore they won't be able to trade with you at all as long as you can hit that. So I think that as long as you can hit your Q in the laning phase as Quinn, then you can be very successful on her. She's also a very strong duelist because of the high damage she has with her Q, as well as her passive procs that she can get, and she does have one of the stronger early to mid games for any AD carry in the game. Once you do hit level 6, she's a really good roaming champion as well, so if you find yourself getting ahead in the laning phases Quinn, let's say you take the enemy's tower, then definitely look to go for some roams like top lane or mid lane with Quinn, because her ultimate provides really good mobility and she can just get from place to place really quickly, so it just allows her to roam really nicely. The vision that she gets with her W is also really nice for the laning phase. You can use that to see if the enemy jungler is coming to gank you, and it's also really nice as well if, say, your team is like a little bit behind, or say you don't have vision on a certain area and you're going for Baron or something, you can pop your W to see if the enemies are waiting in the bush for you, so it's also a really nice part of her kit. And she does have very good sticking power as well because of the slow she gets with her E. A few cons to Quinn though is that she does not scale as well into the late game compared to some of the other AD carries like Jinx and Vayne and Tristana, and she also does not have a dash, so you do have to be careful in the laning phase and in team fights that you are not getting caught out of position. Next up, I have Tristana. So I think Tristana is one of the stronger late game AD carries in the game for sure. If you're looking for one of those champions, then I would definitely recommend playing her. She does have a little bit of a weaker mid game compared to some of the other AD carries like Misfortune and Quinn, but once you do get to late game as her, since she's got the attack speed steroid on her Q, she can just deal so much auto attack damage in team fights, and she can also stay really safe because if you didn't know, whenever you level up as Tristana, you gain extra range on your auto attack, so it just allows her to stay really safe in team fights. She's also great when paired up with an engaged support. I would highly recommend playing her with someone like a Leona or a Thresh or a Blitzcrank, any support that has some sort of lockdown, because by doing this, you're gonna allow Tristana to get maximum damage off from her E, because if you have a lockdown support, then she's gonna get a lot of auto attacks off when the enemy champion is locked down, and then you're just gonna be able to deal maximum burst damage. So I would stay away from the more passive supports with Tristana and lean towards the more aggressive ones. She's also got the reset on her jump, which is really nice for cleaning up team fights, and in my opinion, she is one of the best tower pushing AD carries in the game due to the attack speed steroid that you have with your Q as well as her E. And she's got pretty nice self-peel as well with her ultimate. Like I touched on before, she does have that super long range late game, so it just allows her to stay really safe in team fights. A few cons to Tristana though are that she does have a little bit of a weaker mid game, and she also is weaker with passive supports. I would stay away from supports like Soraka or Sona when you're playing with Tristana, because you're not going to be able to lock the enemies down with those supports, and then therefore you're not going to be able to deal the maximum damage with Tristana's E. Next up on my list, I have Jinx. So Jinx, like Tristana, is a really strong late game AD carry. She's also really good in the mid game because once you pick up the Infinity Edge on Jinx, you're going to be able to deal AoE damage crits with your Q, and if you can get a few of those off in team fights, then you can single-handedly carry a team fight with Jinx. And once you do get to the late game, you're just going to be dealing so much damage, and as long as you do have a peel support or someone that can peel for you in team fights, then you can just be very successful with Jinx. I would definitely recommend trying to convince your support to play someone like a Janna or a Lulu or someone that can keep you safe, because Jinx does not have a gap closer, so you do really have to be careful with her in the laning phase and in team fights about your positioning, since she can get caught out really easily by some of the engaged champions that are being played right now like Malphite. but she does have pretty good CC as well with her Q, or not with her Q, with her W and with her E, and her ultimate is really strong as well for just finishing off that low health target. Whenever you are playing as Jinx, make sure you're paying attention to your other lanes, because you can pick up some kills in the early game by just throwing an ultimate across the map and finishing off a low health target. Like Tristana as well, she's a very good tower pushing AD carry because of the attack speed story that she gets with her Q, and she also does have very good cleanup potential with her passive. Her long range with her fish bones allows her to stay pretty safe in team fights as well, which is also a really nice part of her kit. A few cons to her though are that she does not have a gap closer, so like I said before, try to play her with a more passive support or a peel support like a Janna or a Thresh, or someone that can just peel nicely for her, because it's just going to allow her to play more aggressive in team fights and deal more damage. And she can know that she can do that since she's going to have that support, and she's going to have that backup if she does end up getting caught out. And she is also semi-skill shot reliant with her ultimate and her W. Next on my list, I have Lucian. Lucian is one of the stronger early to mid game AD carries in the game. If you're looking for one of those champions, I would highly recommend playing him. He's also a really bursty AD carry, and he's got a really strong early game due to the damage that he gets with his Q as well as his passive. I would recommend playing him with a strong early game support or with a strong crowd control support, so you can take advantage of Lucian's strong early game. He is great with the Essence Reaver as well. That item just synergizes so well on him because it gives him mana back whenever he does crit. So if you're not building that item on Lucian already, I would highly recommend doing that. He's pretty mobile as well with his E, which just allows him to stay really safe in teamfights and in the laning phase, and he's a great duelist too. If he can get ahead of his opponent, then he can duel them really easily since he does have a lot of burst damage, and he also does have a really strong ultimate. It can 100 to 0 the enemy squishy target in the mid to late game really easily, and it also provides really nice wave clear, so it's an all around really good ability. And one con to him though is that he does not scale as well into the late game as some of the other AD carries like a Tristana or a Jinx or a Vayne. And to round out the top 5 for this patch, I have Misfortune. So Misfortune is my most played AD carry recently. I was like 8-1 on her for the first 9 games I played her this patch, but recently I've lost quite a few games on her for some reason, just because the enemies have been picking a lot of Rengar I found against Misfortune, and if you're looking for a good counter to her, I would definitely recommend playing Rengar, because Misfortune's a mobile, and even though she does have one of the highest win rates in the game, or I'm pretty sure she does have the highest win rate for any champion in the game right now, she does have her weaknesses for sure, and if you are going up against Misfortune, then just play someone with hard engage like a Malphite or a Rengar to take advantage of her lack of mobility. But if you don't play that into her, she can be really successful because she's got a load of damage in the early to mid game. She is one of the stronger early game champions for sure. Her Q can just deal so much damage. If you can end up killing the minion and then bouncing that to hit the enemy champion, it just deals so much damage, and you can just poke them down to like half HP with 1 Q in the early game, so that's pretty crazy. She's also got a really strong level 6 all-in. Like Lucian and Tristana, I would highly recommend playing her with a strong engage support. Leona is really good with Misfortune, because what you can do with Leona is you can just lock down the enemy AD carry with your ultimate and with your Q, and then Misfortune can just get a fully channeled ultimate off, which just provides so much damage, and as long as you do pair her up with an aggressive support, then you can go for some nice all-ins at level 6. She's also got pretty good zoning with her E, which just allows her to, let's say she's taking Baron or Dragon, she can just put her E down so the enemies, it just takes the enemies longer to get to her. And she also does a lot of damage with her ultimate now because it can crit, unlike before, and it also does more damage than before, so it's just an overall stronger ability now. And a few cons to Misfortune though is that she does not have a gap closer, so like I said before, if you are going up against her, play a hard engaged champion to counter that, and she does also have a little bit of a weaker late game compared to some of the other AD carries. So first up on the honorable mentions, I have Vayne. Vayne is a really good late game AD carry. There's no surprise there. She does a ton of true damage, so if the enemy teams are tankier, I would definitely recommend playing Vayne. She does have a weaker early game than before because her W did get nerfed, so she can get bullied out of lane pretty hard by someone like a Misfortune or a Quinn in the early game, but once you do get to mid to late game as Vayne, you can do really well, and if you're a good Vayne player, I would definitely still recommend playing her. Next on the honorable mentions, I have Kalista. So Kalista is one of the stronger early game AD carries in the game. She does have a little bit of a weaker late game, and she is a little bit harder to play than some of the other AD carries in the game, but as long as you can pair her up with a strong early game support who can allow her to get a lot of auto attacks off, or a support that does have good lockdown, so that Kalista can get as many Ren stacks off on her opponent, then she can just end up all-inning the opponents at level 2, and she can get a nice snowball going. So when you are playing Kalista, try to convince your support to play an engaged support, and then just go for an all-in at level 2 because her damage is pretty insane in the early game. And to round out the honorable mentions for this video, I have Graves. So like Lucian, Graves is a really good bursty AD carry. The amount of damage that you can put out as level 6 as Graves is pretty crazy with his ultimate and with his Q. He's also a mobile AD carry because he does have the dash with his E, which is a really nice part of his kit. He is very short range though, so I wouldn't recommend picking him if the enemy team does already have hard engage. If they've picked Malphite top, then picking Graves may not be the best idea since you do have shorter range, so it's just going to be easy for Malphite to line you up and get a good ultimate off on you in team fights. But other than that, he does have a really strong early game. His mid game is really strong as well. The only real con to Graves is that he's shorter range, so he can get caught out pretty easily. So that is all for the video, guys. If you enjoyed, then don't forget to drop a like and subscribe if you have not already. So thanks for watching, guys. Have an awesome day, and I'll see you in my next video.